ça. The behaviors ici. Okay, so let me check. Check. Hey there. So this is the first time I'm streaming. I don't know if you can hear me. You should have a chat in the top left corner of the room, right there. Just need to post a link. Okay. Let's put a little. All right. Yeah. Projects should be. Where is it? Oh no. Don't tell me I forgot that. No, it's on. Okay. On desktop, yes, it is. Okay. And let me check. Yes. Perfect. How do I couldn't find a way to broadcast music. I think you can't in this version of the Hangouts. All right. Then I will just put some Spotify on in the background. And let's find some indie pop. Nope. Some Sal maybe. Oh, what about? Let's see. All right. I don't know if it's the right fit for a kind of session. Hold on. Let's put some cubby then. Yeah, perfect. All right. So today we're going to program a system that is based on QuickTimer events. That was a request from one of the users from Construct2 development group. And we're going to build from that to create, a simple game that's based on pressing buttons and gaining points before a timer ends. That's the very basics of the system. And the aim is eventually to move into a bigger game project that reuses the concepts, but in a more interesting way. And that I've called temporarily Punching Ball Adventures, where you actually punch punching bag in rhythm. A very, very simple concept. All right. So I'm going to try to put the microphone away from the keyboard. So it's HTML5 games, Punching Ball Adventures. I should be writing in English, actually. Okay. So right now we have a very basic Qt system, and so what we have in the prototype 1 is a system that pops a button onto the screen. The timer starts, and you have 2 seconds to click on it. And it's very basic. It's all hard-coded, and it sets some debug text. It tells the player if he's lost or won. That's very simple. So I'm going to remove the comments. So we want to expand that we want to calculate a score in this version. And the score is going to be very simple. The formula is in prototype 2. So prototype 1 is done. Prototype 2 is going to be adding score calculation. And eventually it's going to be also about, the version 2.2 is going to be about chaining Qt events. Score calculation, how we're going to do that? Basically, we're going to take a base success score plus the timer the current timer divided by timer total. So that's a very simple way to do that. That is to say, for example, every time you hit the button right, you get 2 points plus a few more points based on how much time there is remaining on the timer or how fast you did it. That's the basic score calculation. Eventually, what we want to move on is calculating kind of slices of score. That's a bit what timing-based games do. That is to say, they calculate whether you have an excellent timing, a great timing, a good timing, a bad, or just you miss the timing, you miss the timer altogether. And that's basically up to us to define what this corresponds to. But this may be something like if you hit the timer within the first, 10%. Hold on. In the first 10% of the whole timer duration, you have an excellent score. Like that. That will be for later, but between 10 and 25%, you may have a great score, etc. And that's nothing too difficult to do, actually. The hardest part is the design part, where we actually decide how each slice works. And in particular, it's more difficult than just picking percentages like that, and just using those as slices regardless of the timer length. You need more complicated calculations. to have a great feel depending on the difficulty level and all that stuff. But that's kind of the idea. Eventually, that's what we want to have. So I'm going to put that in the notes. Okay. And so the version 2, which we are going to work on right now, is going to add basic score calculation, and then we're going to move into chaining Qt events. Okay, so score calculation is going to be very easy. We have those values whenever we actually touch the sprite. So here's how the CAPEX work at the moment. At the start of the layout, the system works for 2 seconds, and then it launches a timer called QTE on the sprite object. And that timer is individual to this sprite. Whenever the timer ends, the player loses, and we just say, yeah, you've lost. However, if the player touches the sprite and the timer is currently running, this is that condition. If the current time of the timer is inferior to its duration, it means that the timer is running. So the player wins. We set the frame to the actual green object to tell the player that he's won. And we just stop the timer. And right there, we're going to calculate the score as well. So I'm going to add a variable called score, quite simply. And score. And that's very simple. Whenever the player touches the sprite with the right timing, we're going to add, hold on, an action, system, variable. We're going to add to the score. And we're going to add, so let's say how could we calculate? We're going to add 100, which is the base score, plus, so it's, come on, timer dot, right, let me expand that. Sprite.timer.current time for the timer QTE. The name of our timer out of, take all that, copy, paste it, and we're going to add the duration divided by the duration. And that's pretty simple. We're also going to, so this is going to give us a value between 0 and 1. That's part of the expression, which we are going to multiply by 100, our base score value. And I'm also going to round this value so that we have a fixed number, an integer number value to work with. So we're not going to have decimals, right? And we're going to set the text to score all the time. Let me check, because I never know. Okay, I just switched to an ASRT keyboard, and it's not the easiest to get into it. Okay, and actually the text debug, I think I'm going to just, oh, right, it's the second text, all good. So text debug 2, I'm going to keep it visible from the get-go, but keep it empty as well. So I'm going to set the text to some empty value. So that's this text, I believe. Yeah, tdebug2. Let's see. Score, not a number. Okay, I made a mistake with the expression. So where is it? So that's, let me see. I don't need the parenthesis for one here. Oh, I think I stopped. Yeah, that's very stupid. The timer was stopped before the calculation was done. Obviously, we need to calculate the score before we stop the Qt timer. Otherwise, the values are being cleaned up in Construct2. And we're going to set the score here. And this should solve our bug. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Another mistake and issue is that it's actually the duration minus current time that we want to divide by the total duration. Because the current time, if it's at 0.2 seconds, it means that we have 1.8 seconds remaining. And that's what we want to calculate the score, based on what we want to calculate the score. Okay, so that's that. So we calculate duration minus current time, which is going to give us the remaining time in the timer divided by the duration times 100. Okay, so it's starting to grow into a pretty bothersome value, and we're going to solve that in just a tiny moment. Okay, so now the score calculation works well. All right, so that we have. Number 2, okay, it's done. What we're going to do is to simply clean up a bit those expressions, because those values, sprite timer duration and the current time, we are actually using in multiple places. So we can afford to actually store them in some variable, for example, in our sprite object. So I'm going to add timer current, and so it's just going to simply t current, and it's sprite.timer.duration, and the other no, it's the timer.current time, and I'm going to add t total t duration. So t stands for timer in that case, and it's going to be sprite.timer.duration. And so we're going to update it, yeah, whenever we touch the sprite. So we're going to create a sub-event with B and move all that into that sub-event. And we're just going to fill the variables tcurrent.to sprite.timer current time qt, and set t duration to duration. All right, now we're going to use those two values. Yeah. T, what was I doing? Yeah, t current. It's mostly for this expression that's going to be useful. So it's sprite.t duration. I'm going to okay, and it substantially shortens our expression in that case right here. So let me see if there are any questions. If there are any questions, so just that I show you, there's the chat normally in the top left corner. So don't hesitate to hit that up, leave me with a question. And sorry for the jerky video, but I'll do my best to answer, come back from time to time to the chat and trying to answer you. So now it should work the same way as before. All right. It works well. So doing that is up to you. That's kind of a personal preference. The reason I like to do such things is, the duration and T current, I know that I'm going to use elsewhere eventually out of, just kind of knowing what I want to do with that game. So sometimes it is worth storing that way. It's an extra step in the code. But one thing that I appreciate with that is the ability to separate those. It's just, at the top of the event, I'm setting up values, and then I can just put a comment about, what's happening here, actual calculations or something like that. And I kind of know where I'm at in the code. Okay. So next up, we're going to chain QTE events. And that is a part and a moment where it starts to get a little bit tricky with the code, because normally I'm going to show you simple ways to move into that. But normally what you want to do at that point is to start working, refactoring your code with what we call finite state machines. And finite state machines, if you don't know what they are, let me see if I can show you in a simple way. I'd need to grab my tablet. Basically, finite state machines are like a diagram. No, it's not going to be good that way. Yeah. Let me give you an example. Yeah, let's take one like that. So basically, it's kind of a graph where you have states, and basically you define those states in advance, and your program can only move from one state to another in a certain order. And it makes it very easy in Construct2. If you do that, that's basically each state is an individual function that is being called whenever you enter the state, kind of. Which means that you can basically create things like whenever you start a Qt, at the very frame it starts, you do a few things. And then when the timer ends, you get to a new state like Qt end or something like that. You can always know, thanks to this concept, where you're at in the code, and you can create more modular code. The thing is, in C2, it's not that easy to do, actually. I do have some Qt code some FSM code that I can show you. Give me a second. It's there. So it's in files, game projects, which I'm going to add right here. And we're going to take, which one has this code? The spaceship game. Very simple prototype, but it has it. I need light twin and pin to image points. So just give me a second. I'm going to. Okay. Let me check if I don't have them on Dropbox. I think I have those. Dropbox. Because we should have a spaceship project here. C2 plugins, behaviors. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to install some behaviors and plugins that we were using for that project. Oh, and JSON, global FSM. I think I need none of those. So let me check the game projects, back, spaceship, Capex. All right. Pin to, come on. How can I not have this one? All right, I'm just going to download it then. There you go. Into image points here. And it's a, is it a plugin or? All right. My download folder. That's ridiculous. Pin to image points, and I think that should be a plugin. Let's see if it's in recent places. My. All right. Exporters, HTML5, and should be behaviors. All right. Let's see what you. Is it all right? Yes, it's loading. All right. So a slightly more complex bit of code. What I want to show you is, so I refactored because at some point I was using. I don't think I still have the original Capex, because now I'm using a plugin to do finite state machines, which is from Rex Rainbow. This guy has done lots of very handy plugins. And if you don't know him, here's his website, where you can find all of his plugins. Really good, really, really good. Most are very handy. They're going to basically just solve little problems, but that are a pain to tackle in Construct2. For instance, this FSM, it's nothing too hard to do in C2, but with this plugin, it's very easy. So how does it work? For one, you can see that in my projects tab, I have a family called FSM. So all of the objects that are put in this family have the FSM behavior, as well as an initial with variable in that case. But more important is that behavior. All right. So let's check the game real quick. Nope. I want you to only go into layout 1. Go, go, go. Thanks. So that's a very simple spaceship game prototype. Normally, I'm not the developer for this project, so that was just the original concept. And basically, you can see that you move from one row to another. And one thing that's important to note is that text at the top. It basically tells us what state the character is in. And that's a way to perceive finite state machines in a very clear fashion. Basically, you can see that currently the ship is not moving, so it's in the idle state. Or rather, the ship is in the idle state, so it is not moving. Whenever I click somewhere, it's going to move. And when it moves, it's switching from idle to the moving state. So I have to check. I'm going to, at the start, slow down the game. It's the time scale to 0.1. Slow down the game. Yeah, so you can switch direction. I'm going to add a little something in here. It's whenever you touch a row and current state is not moving. So you can see one thing that I did real quick was using this state system. And what it does is basically I'm checking if the character is moving, I'm ignoring all inputs from the player. And that's kind of a thing that state machines permit you to do. It's a huge security that's really, really nice. That's basically, you can check whenever the character is in a certain state, you only do certain things in your code. If you've ever had your code where, I don't know, you're adding values you're adding a value to a variable or stuff like that, and it keeps building up, and you're forced to add a Boolean to check if you can add that value just once and then set the Boolean off or something like that. FSMs completely replace that. They simplify that process tremendously. And most very complex AIs you will see even in AAA games nowadays are built for the most part around finite state machines, very complex ones, but finite state machines. So how does it work? That's pretty simple. The character has a finite set of states. In that case, it can move or not move, be idle. And what happens is, for one, we have a trigger event whenever the character is entering a state. So that's one frame. When the character enters in that state, when the state changes, you can do a certain set of things. So basically, what it does in that case is, if the character moves far, if you jump 2 rows instead of 1, you can see that the ship is firing. So I'm going to move to the top row. And basically, whenever he's moving, hold on, how did I do that? Yeah, so if you're just moving 1 row, you can fire. But if you're moving 2 rows, you can't fire for a certain time. And that's part of the gameplay. That is basically, eventually there should be, obstacles and enemies that take 2 rows, and you're supposed to move very fast to avoid them, but you have to time it right because there's another enemy coming at the bottom. So you have to time it right so as to get back to firing pretty fast, or you're not firing on that enemies that takes the 2 rows whenever, all that boss whenever you're moving, stuff like that. So we're doing a few things, like setting up its movement, adding the blue flame, that that's coming from the reactors whenever the player starts moving. When he stops moving, we remove the blue flame. Those things happen on a trigger, so they only happen once on 1 frame. That's just the power of using FSMs. All right, so back to our Qts. Any questions? Hold on. Nope. Okay, so I'm not going to save in that case. And back to that QTE system. We're going to try chaining QTE events. So now, yes, the issue was, do we use finite state machines or do we not? Normally we should in most cases, because it's pretty hard to manage a game without those. It soon turns into a mess. But right now I'm going to do it in a simple way, and eventually I'll add a layer of FSM. So what we want to do is to, as long as we have only 1 sprite object starting a QTE, it's going to be still pretty simple. So I'm going to add a function object to the project. And we're going basically to create functions from now on. So I'm going to add a group called QTE system or something. Yeah, I'm just going to call it QTE actually. We're going to put everything that's related to QuickTimer events in that group. And what we're going to create is a function that starts or that stops the QTE. So I'm going to call it QTE.start. No, hold on, it's a method. QTE.start and QTE.stop. I'm not sure we'll need a stop function, but let's say we do. So in the case of our game, it's going to be very simple because we need 1 object at a time. We're not going to, we just want to have 1 QTE, then another one, then another one. And what's going to happen is very simple. Whenever we start the QTE, we create a sprite object somewhere and we assign it a QTE timer. All right. And now on the system events, I can just add an events call function that is, yeah, true, that's how you do it. In C2, QTE.start. All right. And our game should still work pretty fine. Yeah. Okay. So now what we want to do is basically whenever our Qt stops or Qt ends, regardless of the outcome, what we want to do is, okay, so I'm going to move all that on timer QTE. I'm going to call the QTE.stop function as well. Okay, moving it all into functions, that's simpler. So on timer QTE, going to do it that way. That is, I'm moving the code that was there into the touch event and all, and moving it into those functions. And I'm going to call that the Qt system. Yeah, I know how I'm going to call it. Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit anal about organization in my code very early on, although it's not very important. And I'm going to call it gameplay. That's going to be gameplay. Sorry. And there we have our Qt system. So whenever we start a Qt, it's going to create an object and assign a timer to it. Whenever we stop that Qt, it's going to check whether the Qt is still running and calculate the score in that case, or it's going to set the animation frame, or otherwise it's going to tell the player that he lost. And whenever the Qt stops, we want to do something. I'm going to do it in a very, very simple way. We're going to add a system wait for 1 second, and then we're going to call the Qt.start again. Okay? This should normally, so the reason why, just so you know, the reason why we're using functions is because functions are kind of trigger events. So they are just being called, on that trigger or on that trigger, which happen once in a given frame in our game loop. We're going to call the functions, and those functions are going to be just called once like that. And they're going to run those events just once as well. So they're not going to keep building sprites like that, or things that would be slightly trickier if we were using regular events. So using trigger events is really the way to go, and using functions when you're using Construct2. They simplify the development process quite a bit. So, boom. Okay, I messed up somewhere, somehow. Untouched. Okay, I forgot to call the function here. Qt stop when you click. Click. Okay. So let me check. After, I'm going to wait for 1 second, destroy the sprite object. Okay, now it's working. You can see. So now we're going to create the sprites. Instead of creating in the center of the screen, we're going to create it, at some random position. So random, is it window? Yeah, it's window width and window height. So we're just creating it somewhere within the window, like that. Boom, 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 gaining score. Okay. Why, if we click? Yes, it's, if we keep touching the sprite, I think I need yeah, I need to put that condition here. Again, that's not really clean, but that's okay. So basically the problem is without an FSM, you can click multiple times on the sprite, and if you don't check that the timer is still running, or that it has been stopped, you could call multiple times the qte.stop function, and because the QTE is being stopped whenever you succeed in the QTE, if you re-click, you're going to get to that condition, which is the lost, whenever the player loses at a QTE. And right now, even if you lose, you don't lose anything. You can see that just lose 1 second, bam, next QTE, next QTE. But it's fine. Okay. So now we have our base framework for the QTE system. I'm going to save that as a new file, and we're going to move into the next step, QTE system 3. So let's take some notes. What can we do next? Because we basically have the system that was requested. One thing that I'd like to add to such a system is, a layer of finite state machine. And adding a finite state machine at that point is not going to kind of improve the game. However, it's going to create a sane base. Basically, what we just have here is a base prototype. And adding a layer of FSM is going to clean up our code. It's basically we're reviewing our whole code in order to expand it. Like, for example, do things like instead of having just one QTE that pops on the screen, we could want a streak of, quick timer events. I have a hard time with pronouncing event. So we could think about a system that creates, for example, 3 or 4 sprites like that. That creates a streak like that. Along a circle, and where you have to click, 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 click in order to, get all the points, and a bit like Us, the game Us, for those who know, it, or those who don't know it. Where can I find? Oh, come on. Do they have some screenshots in here? Come on, guys. You don't have screenshots for your game. What if I search for media on page screen? Whoa, that's pretty. Yeah, it's a pretty popular Japanese game. I don't know if it's Japanese really, but basically, yeah, that's that kind of thing where it's a rhythm game where you have to click on stuff in rhythm, and it's like I think Bit Trip Elite Agent, the concept. But basically, by expanding our QTE system, we could build stuff like that eventually. One thing that could be fun is to add this kind of timing circle, and yeah. One thing we can work on for the third version is adding a timing circle and timing tables. So timing tables is what I put there, the score calculation version 2, that is calculating slices of timing instead of just having a very basic score calculation. So I should have a sprite that I prepared for that. Hold on. No, I want to get to desktop Qt assets, and I'm still going to add that location in here to access it more easily. And so, yeah, I have a big circle here. All right. Okay, so I'm going to activate the grid in order to easily place my object right there. Now they're aligned because they have the same, pivot, which is at the center of those objects. So one thing we kind of would like to do in that case, hold on, is that having a circle that comes and basically when it's here, it means that it's the perfect timing to hit the button. And I think in that case, it's interesting to add the circle first before adding the timetables, because we'll have a tool to visualize our timing, the way our timing works. And this means that we need to do something that's pretty cool, which is tweening. And in order to add tweening, I'm not going to code it right with the core C2 functions. I'm going to use a plugin that is LightTween in that case. So in that case, I'll ask you to bear with me because, oh, I don't have it. Come on. I just installed it. I'm pretty sure. Did I mess up somehow? Let me check that. Construct2 exporters HTML site. Learnarray.lightTween. No, it's here. Why is it not showing up then? Hold on. It means I have to restart the Capex. Come on, it's the third one that I wanted. Okay, so let me check again. LightTween. Okay, it's just it's right there. Okay. So we're going to have a yeah, we need a size tweening. So what it's going to do, we need it to be linear as well. For now, it's going to. So basically, the LightTween plugins, for those who don't know it, is a tweening plugin. So what it does is it animates values based on some input, but it's very handy because it does it has all sorts of little modes, and you can pretty easily animate anything you want. So what we have to do is to check the size of our circle. Our circle has a size of 160 by 160 pixel, and we're going to animate the size of our big circle. There are a few ways we can do that in Construct2. There's one way, which is using values, so that not so many people use, which is the scale of your object. The problem is, as you can see with the description, the scale is basically a scale of 1 is the original size of the object, a scale of 2 is double the size, etc. One issue with C2 is that it's actually the original size of the sprite and not the original size of the object in the view. Like, for example, if you have your object that's like that, the scale, it's not going to scale relative to that way. It's going to scale relative to that. So if you set a scale of 0.5, for example, it's going to always look like this, and it's not going to keep the stretch or anything. However, what we want is a little bit of flexibility with that, with our system, even if we're not going to use it necessarily in the end. So I'm going to store the initial width. I'm going to create a family for that. That way we can tween new objects eventually. So it's going to be circle big, and it's going to be tweened items. Okay. Hold on, I'm grabbing some water. Because talking like that all the time, I'm starting to run dry. Let's see if you have any questions. No. I don't know. Normally you should have access to the chat. I think it's enabled. Let me check on the... It's okay. Let me see, guys. Oh, sorry. Okay, I didn't... I think it was going to... I see now. Okay, so the chat is only right there on the control panel. So... So the documents I have in here for very small games. So that was a question from, hold on, excuse me, Hints. I hope he's still here. Yeah. So the document you can see here, those are just a few notes I have for many games, like a to-do list in here. Whoa, it's kind of, to-do list for a game. You can see right there some notes, and I mostly use that, as a kind of a scratch pad, but that's still a bit modular. For very small games like this one, if I'm working with someone, I'll make a small document, which I'm going to show you an example of that, which I did for a project. Unfortunately, right now it's on standby, but yeah. So it's a concept document, and it's about, it's 2 pages long. It has some notes, some ideas. Basically, it's all about, talking a bit about what we are going to do before the project starts. And I send this document with the prototype I showed you earlier. That is a very simple prototype game that lasts just for a few seconds. That's proof testing the core concept of the game. Now, you don't need to make very long documents for really small games like that. I really invite you to, your game prototype is your game concept. This kind of game prototype with very simple graphics, you don't focus on the background, the art already. You really think about the core functionality. You want to try something out. So that QTE system is not a great example because it's a request. So it's not like a kind of system I would use and think about, I'm going to make a game that revolves around quick timer events. No, that's rather, if I can show you, I should have a few concepts around here. Yeah, so basically that's how I wrote them. Like, the concepts, we're going to make a Vlambeer shooter. We're going to make a space shooter with the hectic pace and feel of Vlambeer games. That's very simple. That's a concept for a tiny project that we're going, in that case, to sell to a publisher. So those are very standardized games they need that work well, that are pretty short, etc. So you don't need to think too much through the base concept. It has to be very clear, very simple. But there's, for example, with the concept and kind of the visual idea that we had there, we could make a line rider game. The player rides with his ship along a ramp or a line of energy. That is that green thing. And it's actually feasible. It's it could be a more interesting concept. It's you just need 1, 2, 3 sentences like that to kind of start the project, have the very core fundamental idea. And then once you have it, if you have just a little bit of experience, you can just jump into the code and start creating the core concept. You take 1, 2, 3 hours to make your prototype, and you focus just on that, really. Yeah. Okay. So moving back to that game, I'm going to create a new group that's called Tweening. But just so you know as well, as far as documents are concerned, if you're writing a story-based game, or if you have a more complex theme, you sometimes need to create, a few pages long documents, maybe 4 or 5 pages. But in all honesty, apart from large teams where they start to be 50 or 20, 50, 100% working in the same studio, you don't need very detailed documents, simply because anyway, everything that you put on paper at first is going to change. It's all subject to change, and it's all going to be determined by the code, the actual feel you get in the game you're going to code. That's why it's very important to jump into the game very fast, because you can see that even when I'm programming that system, since the start of the video, I'm saying, okay, we're going to do that, and I'm changing things as I go. And that's normal, that's natural. We are designers. It's not science, right? It's not like we have an established structure and a very, very specific system we are going to create in a very specific way. Programming is a creative job. Designing the game is a creative job. Doing the art is a creative job. Doing the music as well. They are all creative jobs, and you need some room to experiment. And you need to experiment pretty fast as well. If you start to write down too many things and you try to force yourself to follow them, chances are your game will fail. And I can show you one example of that, which is a game we made with my former associate. So we were building a company together, and we worked on a big game, which is this one. So it's going to be buggy as hell, I think, but I can still show you. So it was a pretty big project. So I need, come on. I need the Magicam plugin. Okay, that's just one. Sorry, that's a new computer, and it's I've been trying to install everything properly, but it's really hard to keep track of everything. So it is it on the, no, it's on Construct Classic. I'm going to go into just the search and grab it. So it's Magicam plugin for C2. So basically, we were trying to create a game for mobile phones, which with Construct 2, which was a bad idea at the time we did it. I think that was in the end, around the mid to end of 2013. And it's a C2 add-on. Hold on. If you ever find a folder that's a Construct 2 add-on, just know that it's actually a zip file. You can unzip it. That's pretty important, because basically C2 add-ons, I think they have been deprecated. You can't really open them with Construct 2 anymore. Crap. I left the folder. Okay. So, all projects, games with Florian, and what isn't, yeah. One Construct project, Cap project, and okay. Okay, open that, dear. All right. So what we were working on was a big Construct 2 game for mobile phones. Oh no, it's not the version I wanted. Come on. So is it the Capex? There's the cleanup version, but is questions? Come on. Now I need the SCML plugin. Okay, that's a test stream, right? I'm not going to keep the video or anything. Next, it's going to be a bit more structured and all. I wanted to test. Could you tell me one thing? Is is the streaming good? I think it should be a bit jittery. And I'm going to see if we can, upgrade our internet connection in the next few days, because I saw that it's actually, you can do it at no cost. So if we're lucky enough, we should even, you can even get fiber for pretty cheap. So if I can get it, that would be pretty cool. I'll be able to stream in HD and with a pretty fluid image, footage. So download plugin. Okay, yeah, because we were using Spriter as well, which was a very bad idea. Spriter, I mean, it's really cool that C2 has a plugin that works like Spriter, but in practice, it's a bit of a pain to use. So now I can open, I'm going to try to open the version 34 of the project before it was cleaned up. And so you can see that's a big mess, like with hand-placed colliders and all. Those were all kind of limitations. There wasn't, we decided to try to upgrade the project as Construct2 was getting new updates. When we started the project, there was no tile map support, for example. And yeah, you can see that's the rabbit game. So just note that almost no one saw this game project. Can I? What is he doing here? Yeah. That's so ridiculous. Okay, so we had that game project. Basically, we made it originally for mobile phones, and we tried at some point to say, okay, we're going to port it on desktop because obviously it will never run on mobiles. But oh my god, yeah, it's all buggy on desktop. It's crazy bad. Right. So yeah, basically that was a kind of an infiltration game where you could basically put a mask on, but the mask doesn't work in this version. And the reason it doesn't work is not because we're just plain lazy, but actually SCML, and I'm not sure it does support it just yet, but it didn't support changing a sprite, so changing the face of the character at that point. And actually, the SCML format is pretty heavy, so it has created quite a few problems with that game. That is, we could have copied the walk animation with all the animations with the character mask on, but that's adding a few like 1 megabyte of data every time we're doing that with our game. And so yeah, so that's a very simple game where you just had to basically jauge between just moving normally and using the shift key to kind of sprint in order, because you can't jump directly. You have to use those bumpers in the game, and all the game revolves around the character putting the mask on, which I can show you in a spriter. Yeah, it was on. Oh, I don't have it on this computer. Too bad. That's true. Yeah, I didn't think I would show you that actually. So let me see exports with the mask. Well, if I go to the old K project version, I should be able to show you the putting mask animation. Well, actually, now that I think of it, in the old version, it wasn't even. I think we were just putting a sprite on the character's face. Hold on. We have those old levels as well. We started with huge levels. The performances with Constructor were awful. Yeah, that's how it worked. Welcome to the alpha preview of Project Lapin, which is Rabbit. Oh, that's so bad. So the dummies, the enemies in that level can't harm you. There's some music even. Yeah. Yeah, it all revolved around that. A pretty boring game, but and you can see all the things, all the things we had issues with in C2, like the sprites scaling and all. It's much easier to handle in a 3D engine, or well, I'm a 3D artist initially, so it was pretty tough to switch to 2D. You kind of have to think differently. So yeah, I don't know why I came to talk about that. To 12 useful. Oh yeah, BFXR. I guess. I'm glad it could help. So how many? You're six. You're six, guys. That's sick. I mean, yeah. I didn't expect that many people to come in. Okay, so I'm going to try to make more interesting streams in the future. That's the very first one ever. But yeah. So tell me, what should we do next? Do you want to see a bit of game art maybe, or would you rather, because game art, it's easier to talk about for me, or would you rather see some more C2 game development with that tweening thing? I'll leave it up to you. You can put it in the chat. I would like to see where I can, if I can't, oh, come on, screen, you're mean. I would like to see whether I can, kind of see your comments from within here, or it would be simpler. All right. Yeah, I said that I would do the twinning thing, so let's work a little bit on that. We're going to get back to those twinned objects. Okay, so we have our twinned family, to which we're going to give the behaviors and the variables that are going to characterize twinned objects. So I'm going to add the light twin behavior from Construct2, which is which you can find on the forums. Hold on, pretty easy to find normally. Okay, nope. From LearnArray. Ha ha ha. LearnArray. I'm not sure. Oh, come on. Behavior light twin. Okay. And I'm going to leave you a link with that. Boom, 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 boom. Easiest for me. Yeah, the easiest would be game art, actually. But I'm going to do that and then move into doing some game art, right? That's going to be pretty quick anyway. So that light twin behavior, we are going to work with the actual width and height of our object. So we're going to add an initial width and initial height. To our object. And right away, I'm going to copy the system start of layout event condition, or rather I'm going to create a sub event in that one and initializing objects. And I'm going to just set up on the tweened object. So I'm going to add a for each event. I'm not sure it's necessary in that case, but yeah, just in case. So it's going to pick each object in the family one by one. And we're going to set its variables initial width to self.width, because at the start of the layout, its width and height correspond to its initial width and initial height, which we are going, if we start tweening the object, we are going to change those. So that's why we want to store them in variables, because we want eventually to be able to go back, move back to the original width and height, depending on the kind of animations we do. Like maybe the circle is going down, but whenever the player hits the right timing, or at the end of the mini game, for example, we want the circle to blow away and scale up to take the whole screen or something like that. In that case, we're going to need to reuse those values to go back to the initial width and height and do another tween that starts from that. So I'm then going to turn this into a function, initializing the tween, and it's going to be tween.initialize. Tween.init, I think, should be good enough. Okay, and I'm going to call that function. Oh no, it's a pain to do that. Yeah, I'm not going to do the function just yet, because in Construct2 currently, when you pass an object to a function, well, you can't pass an object to a function, so you can't apply a function to a specific object. You have to you have to pass the UID and repick the object from the function, which is adding extra steps and making our life a bit harder. So what we're going to do is, okay, so it's going to be a little bit harder for our Qt system. For now, we're just going to tween the system. I'm going to disable the whole Qt and gameplay stuff and just work on the tweening for now. So what we are going to do is just do one tweening in that case, which is going to be our test tween. And what we want is circle big. We're going to tween. Hold on. We are going to start tween. Create initialize tween. It's going to be size in pixel. And I think that you are actually going to, I should be able to do something like this, 1 second and in compromise mode. And you can see that I'm using for each tweened object, and we're only going to have one for now in the game. But that's made thinking about, what I told you about earlier. Let's say we make a streak of objects like that. We want maybe 3, 4, 5 circles to be animated independently at the same time. Haha, super good. I love you, Lightween. So let's make a size. It's going to be inactive on start. We're going to use the linear mode. And it's going to be in absolute mode. So if you're using the absolute tweening in that case, it means that it's, in a world position. That's the value you have here in Construct2, or, that's an absolute value. If you make a target of 32, 32 in relative mode, it's going to add 32, 32 to the values you have in your size or position in Construct2, And we don't want that. We want the target to be absolute. That is to say, if we tween the position to 100, 100, or in that case, the size, it's going to give us that as a result. Our target in that case is going to be, I'm going to place it here, and our target is going to be 160, 160. We're going to do that, and circle big, we're going to start the tween in that case to activate the light tween. All right. So now that happens after the system has waited for 2 seconds, which we don't necessarily want. But you can see that, boom, it's twinning, it's working. So one thing you have to know that's very important with light tween, if you are in absolute mode, do not manually set the size, width, and stuff, or it's going just not to work. You have to let light tween do its stuff. And even if you're twinning the position and all that stuff, just be careful. You can't do your twinning, or you can do your twinning in relative mode, relative to the current position. But honestly, you're either twinning or you're working on the object's position or scale, etc., within C2. But you can't really do both at the same time. So we have a really simple setup. I think it's taking 1 second to scale down, and I'm going to set its start size to something like 300, 300. So it's a bit more clear. Yeah. One limitation in Construct2, let's say we want to do something more. We also want to tween the actual opacity of the sprite. We want it to be a bit faint at the start when it's created and get down to 100% opacity. Well, with light tween, we can't tween two things at the same time. We have to add second behavior in that case. Okay. So you're not going to be active on start as well. So in general, the behaviors, I deactivate them on start, most of them, and in particular the light tween behavior. It's mostly, for consistency. I'm always going to initialize them from the code exactly where I need them to initialize. I don't want to have a split, half of the behaviors are active at the start and I have to deactivate some of them in the code or whatever. No, I deactivate them, most of them. Some I don't, like the platform behavior and stuff, the things you really need at the start. But those I'd rather deactivate them because I want to fine tune the tweens. Maybe you don't want them to be synced, for example. You want first the opacity tween to start and stop pretty fast, and then you want to start the other tween, not in synchronization. So you want to have control over that. So what I'm going to do next is copy those two events. And I'm going to go to tween, and you can see that now we have light tween number 2 and light tween number 1 in the edit action menu. So same thing, I'm going to initialize the tween for light tween 2, which is the one down here. And it's going to be opacity linear as well. It's going to last 0.6 seconds, and the target is 100. Oh yes, it has to be a string. So it's going to be that. It's going to be, let's say, light tween 2. We're going to start from the beginning. And we want to do one last thing, which is, so target is 100. Is before that, we are going to set the opacity of our object in the code once again to 20 right here before the tween starts. Okay, so we're initializing both tweens. One thing you may notice is here I'm using the family, and here I'm using the circle object. You can easily replace with the R key. You press the R key, and you're just going to select the tween object to replace the circle big with the twinned object. The reason I'm using both is for clarity's sake. For me, it's very easy. When I look at the code, I see that I'm doing for each tween. Okay, so I'm doing something on all the twinned objects, and I'm affecting, all the twinned objects, which may be other things than the circle. I'm setting the initial width and height. But only on the circles, I'm going to initialize the tweens. Let's say I add another object, like I add sparkles or something that has to be animated as well. I want to animate it separately. And that's very easy to look at. We have the twinned object. It's also circle big is a twinned object. So it's going to be picked, with that system condition. So then you can affect only the circle big and do the things that are very specific to it. And whenever you add new twinned objects to the family, you can do things to them as well. You can initialize them in a different way. And you can see that now we have both our opacity and our scale, that's going down. So a few things we want to do eventually is add an external value that is going to control the duration of our tweens, because we are going to reuse those in different, if we want to make a game where the timing can vary, and it's the same thing for our QTE system. We want to make a game where the tweening duration can vary depending on the speed of the song, depending, on the difficulty mode in the game and all that stuff. So we're just going to add that. We're going to do tween duration for now. We can change those names eventually, so that's not really a problem if we mess up. And let's give it a base value of 0.8 and of the circles size tween in seconds. And I'm going to use that tween duration here. And I'm going to use it as well in here, but I'm going to do tween duration times 0.6, something like that. 0.75 should be good. Yeah, better. All right. One thing we can experiment with is the function we're using for our tweening in Lighttween. So it's a bit complex because you have, that big drop down with all that jazz. So if you're interested in, if you're English speakers, maybe add a few buttons. Sorry, it's RSJ. The RSJ. How do you read that? Maybe add a few button and background, because there's kind of a delay between the time you write something and the moment I read it. So don't hesitate to to just add a bit more information to your messages, so that I know, I can keep track of what it was about. So I wrote an article. I'm going to send you, I write them for a client, but this one is about juicing, and there's a little bit about that's being said about tweening in that case. And in particular, hold on, the easings, which is what we have here in that big drop down. Basically, those are common easing functions. And what are easings? Simply, they are functions or equation that interpolate between two values in a certain way. That is, they kind of change the output you get whenever you advance in time. So it's going to, how can I say it in a simple way? You're just going to have different accelerations and curves to your tweening. And you have a visual representation of those on the website easings.net. You have the most common functions, which are used in CSS most of the time by web designers. but they're very useful for, game designers as well. And in that case, we can maybe use a Easin cubic, I think. Let's see. Yeah. It's going to accelerate on the... I don't know if gameplay-wise that's a good idea, but I think a linear is okay for the opacity twinning. But yeah, so just, know that you can play with those functions, and whenever you test a light twin, just take your time and look at what they all do. It's because some of them you can leave out, the quad quint mode instead of cubic or circle. They are pretty close. All those the first half of the drop down, they are not too far from one another, and then the second half they are very specific. Smooth step is not very useful, but apart from that, the easing back and elastic and bounce are very specific, so you can't use them most of the time. We have our base twinning. Okay, what do we do next? Hold on. I'm gonna check the chat as well. Okay. There's not too much time left for that stream. The thing is, I don't have time to turn the whole system into, a very interesting Qt-based game with multiple buttons and all, because it's not that easy to manage everything. But let me see. Maybe I can create a twin object for you. So yeah, I'm going to start adding those functions. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Whenever we create our sprites, when we start a Qt, we're also going to create a circle that's going to pop onto this sprite for now. I'm going to copy paste the create object. So I'm going to first start the timer to let it work along with the create object function, because what the create object action does is it's actually going to pick only the object that has been created within that event. So the sprite is being created and it's going to get a timer assigned to it. And then we create another object. I think that normally this should change the selected objects list in Constructo, in the Constructo internal system. But as we only have one sprite right now, we can kind of go that way and just go real fast, create an object circle that's going to be placed on the sprite object, and we're going to call the twin.initialize function. And that way we should have a twin right there, and we want to add some complexity to our Qt.stop, which is whenever it stops, we want to destroy as well the circle big object. Okay, so I also have to destroy that's, yeah, whenever I think I have to do it another way, that way. Okay. Yeah, that's because we have to set our initial width and height whenever we create the twin object. So it's not useful. It's not absolutely necessary in that very yeah, I'm going to replace it with Circle Big. It's not absolutely necessary in that game at this specific moment in the development. And I'm going to destroy the Circle Big at the start of the layout. Most of the time, you need to destroy a majority of items. So at least that is working. Let me check. Circle Big. Why is it not starting? Did I miss something? It's been a while since the thing is, now I'm working with a developer, so I've been working with a developer, and now I'm getting back to Construct 2, and it's a bit. I know that it's a tiny bit. I had some issues with Lightwind before. Let me think. What can this be? Why is this not working? I should look at the Lightwind documentation. So Sunday, regarding your question, it's hard to say. I have a friend who actually switched from GameMaker to Construct 2, and he's pretty happy. Honestly, I think that's because he has not so many. He's not like a fully fledged developer. Me myself, now that I dived a bit more into development, and I've been working very closely with an engine developer. In that case, in JavaScript, I really have a hard time with Construct 2. I mean, it's a great tool. It's a great prototyping tool, but if you have experience, like you've been programming for a few years with GameMaker, so you probably have your libraries, you probably have template scripts that you can copy paste from project to project. With Construct 2, it's very hard, honestly, to port stuff from project to project right now. So whenever Construct 3 is out, and if it lives up to the expectations, to the promises, it will probably be a great idea to switch, because some things are very, very fast to do in C2. That's it. On the other hand, I mean, I have to be honest, I really like what they did. I think it's a great product. But Construct 2, whenever your project grows a bit, it becomes a mess, but a real mess. One environment I would suggest, on the other hand, is Unity. Very good for 2D game development. It's not perfect because it's a hybrid 2D, 3D engine. Well, it's a 3D engine with 2D functions. But it's, yeah, if you're a coder, you can become really fast with Unity. It just takes more time to learn. And it can be useful. There are lots of resources, lots of systems, complex systems on the store and all that stuff, assets you can buy. So yeah. Come on. A bit of copy again to wrap up the stream. Oh, we are already at the end of the stream. My God. So I'm curious about the reason why it's not working. It works whenever you do it at the start of the layout, obviously. Yeah, don't destroy it. Does it? Do I have to pick them, maybe? So I'll be honest, right now I don't know why this is not working. Let's just set them up from right here. I'm going to do it that way. Target. Capacity 0.6. Okay. Okay, it works in that case. If it's set from the UI, but that's very, very bad to set it up from the UI, guys. I wonder if it's the initialize tween function. Maybe it only works at the start of the layout. If I do it that way, for each circle big, initialize it and try it that way. Nope. Worst part is it's actually a problem that I've had in the past with that plugin. Yeah, in all honesty, me myself, I'm using Construct 2 right now for, to share with everyone because it's a very accessible software and it's good training. Working with Construct 2 is useful and all. I'll keep using it for prototyping, most likely. But I'm working with meta.infinitegames.com. To ask him. Okay, I didn't expect that. I'm working with an engine developer, so well, you can jump on. The thing is, I'm not a developer either, but if you're using GML, you're already working with code. And if you're jumping onto Unity, you really, to get into development, you just have to give the time. It's a big investment, but I think that in about, myself, I tried in the past and now it's much simpler than before. And Unity, it took me like within 2 weeks, I was able to make little games. And there weren't any 2D, features like there are now. There weren't the learning paths and all the resources that are on the website right now, because there's everything for you to learn either C# or JavaScript. And that's a recommendation from my former teammate was to go for C# in that case, for a very strict language, very structured. But the kind of JavaScript is fine too, and it works pretty well. It's pretty easy because you don't have to jump into object-oriented programming from the get-go. You can just you can just enjoy doing simple code and learn slow and steady. There are also tools like there's this finite state machine tool, Playmaker, and a few other ones which permit you to code visually, like the blueprint system of the Unreal Engine. Maybe 5 or 6 systems like that in Unity, on the asset store. The channel creation, I'm going to check that. It's actually pretty fun that it's actually the Frenchmen who are here. Well, I guess it's part of the hours. Do you have a link to that? Is it tutorial Unity French, or let's see if may you have a link, hints, just to see whether just to check it out, because I don't know too many French resources. It's sorry, I don't know too many good resources and video tutorials in French that are free, you know, like people who post on a regular basis on YouTube, keep things up to date. Okay, so let me check Lightwing again. And I'm going a little bit over time, but I just want to check that issue because if there's a way to solve it, there's a PDF manual here. That's interesting. We're going to debug into a text. So it's Lightwing is active. What? No. Oh, okay. Condition actually. Aha. So it's actually when you initialize the tween and try to start it from within the code, the Lightwing behavior stays inactive. That's pretty huge. Let's say it's active on start. Does it take into account my initialize event? Yeah, it doesn't take it into account. That's pretty... Maybe you just can't use tween. Hold on. I think I have to check the plugin because it's not written in the documentation where it's that or not. Construct two exporters. Do I have Atom installed? I should have it. Lightwing. Come on, it's a behavior. Lightwing. Okay, and I'm going to edit. Is it the? No, it's the runtime with Atom. I think it's a pretty big one. This one. And we're going to check for initialize. Is it called in the UI? It's called initialize tween. Let me check. Okay, getting into. Hey, what's the matter with that? Why is it not? Come on. Back to the top every time. Why is that? Ah, that's curious. Okay. So that's parsing the twin list. Oh, it's a progress to start twin. My God. Stop twin, reverse, updates. Okay, need to check the other script in here, the edit time script, to know, because normally that should be, okay, create initialize tween, add action, so this is the number. Yeah, so that's the one at the end. Shouldn't be this one, should be down below. Set parameters. Set targets. Initial and full duration, progress 2, stop start. Where's the initialize? I'm curious. Looks like it's right there. Nope. Okay. It's going to take too much time if I do it that way. So I'm just going to out. Manually see the difference. So one is going to be let's say okay. And inactive on start. That's what I want. Okay. That's a pretty bad way to end the stream, but okay, Unity Space Shooter. All good. Thanks. I'm going to end the stream there. It was until 11:30 normally, and because I don't want to stay stuck on that, and I have to prepare lunch as well. So thank you for joining. I'm going to see if I can increase my better my internet connection for next time, and I'll be discussing with you. So you can find me on Facebook. If you want me to treat specific things on the stream, in particular, game art will be much simpler. I'll be streaming game art in the future, more so than development, which is I think a bit boring. And the problem is if I talk much like I was doing, it's also a bit boring because I'm not sure it's very useful actually. So you'll tell me. And thanks for being here, and see you soon, hopefully. Let me check. Okay. That's the end of the broadcast. Bye-bye.